the roar of cannons, the acrid smell of burning fuel, the tremor of the earth beneath heavy tracks. These are the visceral realities of war. But sometimes, the greatest battles aren't fought with steel and fire, but with spreadsheets and assembly lines. In the annals of World War II, few confrontations symbolize this truth more profoundly than the epic, yet lopsided contest between Germany's magnificent Tiger tank and America's ubiquitous Sherman. Imagine, if you will, August 8, 1944. Deep in the Norman hedgerows near a village called Senth, a man named Hauptmann Michael Wittmann grips the cupola of his Tiger 007. A legend in the Wehrmacht, a man whose name struck fear into Allied hearts, Wittmann scanned the horizon with Zeiss binoculars. His hands, though seasoned by countless battles, trembled, not from fear of the enemy, but from a dawning, horrifying realization. For 3 relentless hours, his company of 4 Tigers had been performing miracles, destroying Sherman after Sherman. 27 burning hulks littered the fields, each Tiger claiming at least 6 kills. By every textbook measure of tactical combat, they were winning decisively. The exchange ratio was a magnificent 7-1. Yet, through his lenses, Wittmann saw not retreat, but an endless tide. 48 more Shermans, fresh units, unblooded crews, full ammunition racks, advancing from 3 directions, and behind them, dust plumes promised dozens more. His 4 Tigers had perhaps a dozen armor-piercing rounds left. No fuel for major maneuvers, no reserves. In that moment, Wittmann wasn't just witnessing a battle. He was staring into the cold, hard face of industrial arithmetic, an arithmetic that would, within minutes, claim his life and crush the Wehrmacht beneath sheer, overwhelming mass. His final, desperate radio transmission, logged at 12:47 hours, captured the despair of an entire army. Ammunition exhausted. Enemy unlimited. This wasn't just a military defeat. It was a philosophical one. A clash between 2 diametrically opposed visions of industrial power and national purpose. Germany sought perfection. America pursued production. And in the crucible of global war, one proved strategically fatal, the other strategically decisive. The story of German tank superiority began on May 26, 1941, at the Berghof, Hitler's mountain retreat. Ferdinand Porsche and Henschel and Son presented their prototypes for what would become the Tiger tank. Hitler, captivated by the massive 80mm gun and armor that seemed impenetrable to any Allied tank, immediately ordered its production. He declared this tank would be worth a battalion of ordinary tanks, capable of destroying a dozen enemy vehicles. This was more than a technical assessment. It was a statement of national ego. The Führerbefehl, the Führer's order, set a dangerous precedent. Quality would triumph over quantity. Each Tiger would be a masterpiece of engineering, meticulously handcrafted by skilled workers, an invincible leviathan on the battlefield. Hitler, buoyed by his engineers' confidence, assured his staff that the Americans could never match German excellence. Their tanks, he asserted, would be nothing more than Detroit tin cans on tracks. This belief system, ingrained in German military and industrial culture, saw tanks as individual works of art, each a complex symphony of precision engineering. The first Tiger rolled off the Henschel production line on August 4, 1942. It had taken a staggering 300,000 man-hours to complete. Workers had installed 26,000 individual parts. Master craftsmen had hand-fitted transmissions. Skilled welders spent days on the thick armor plates. even the iconic interleaved wheel system, a marvel of engineering designed to distribute the tank's immense 57-ton weight, required precision assembly only experienced artisans could accomplish. Oberst Wolfgang Tomala, observing its trials, wrote, "This machine represents the pinnacle of German engineering. No enemy can stand against it. If we can produce 100 per month, the war is won." The tragically ironic truth. Germany would never achieve that figure in a single month until April 1944, a full 2 years later, when the production peaked at 104 tanks. By then, the industrial behemoth across the Atlantic was churning out 2,000 Shermans monthly. The American narrative of tank production began not with military architects drafting blueprints for a superweapon, but with a pragmatic telephone call. On May 28, 1940, President Roosevelt called William Knudsen, the former president of General Motors. "Bill," the president said, "I want you to come to Washington. We need to build 50,000 planes and 50,000 tanks." Knudsen's response laid the philosophical cornerstone for America's war machine. "Mr. President, we can't build the best planes and tanks, but we can build the most planes and tanks, and we can build them so that any kid from Iowa can fix them with a wrench and a screwdriver." This was the essence of American industrial democracy, not about artisanal perfection, but about mass-produced utility. The Sherman tank emerged directly from this ethos. At a design meeting in August 1940, Army Ordnance presented requirements that would have horrified traditional military engineers, but delighted Detroit production experts. The tank needed to be simple enough for inexperienced workers to build, with parts interchangeable across all variants. Its engine had to run on multiple fuel types, its armor plates welded rather than precisely fitted, its tracks replaceable in field conditions by the crew itself. Major General Gladion Barnes, head of Army Ordnance, summed it up perfectly. "I don't want a perfect tank. I want a good enough tank that we can build 1,000 of them for every 100 the Germans build. Make it reliable, make it fixable, and make it by the tens of thousands." This wasn't a call for technical brilliance, but for industrial feasibility. The stark contrast between these philosophies was immediately evident in the factories themselves. At Henschel's Castle plant, 9,000 skilled workers, many trained through generations of craftsmanship, labored on Tigers. The factory floor resembled a medieval guild workshop, scaled up to industrial size. Master craftsmen supervised apprentices, and workers often signed their names on components, a testament to personal pride in their artistry. A former worker, Untold Franz Lehnhardt, recalled spending 3 days on a single final drive assembly. Every gear meticulously checked, every weld inspected multiple times. It was not mass production, he mused. It was art. Meanwhile, at Chrysler's Detroit Tank Arsenal, which opened in September 1941, a radically different reality unfolded. This factory alone sprawled across 1.25 million square feet, larger than all German tank factories combined. The workforce wasn't comprised of master craftsmen, but of former automobile workers, housewives, teenagers, and anyone who could learn to operate a riveting gun or welding torch. Iconic figures like Rose Willil Monroe, the original Rosie the Riveter, worked on Sherman production. She described her experience. "I'd never seen a tank before I started building them. They gave us 2 days of training, then put us on the line. Everything was broken down into simple steps. I'd weld one seam, the tank would move, someone else would weld the next. We'd finish a tank in 4 hours. This was assembly line production of tanks, something German engineers deemed impossible. Chrysler engineers, leveraging techniques from the automotive industry, broke the Sherman into modular components. Sub-assemblies were built on parallel lines, then brought together for final integration. The entire process, from raw steel to completed tank, took just 48 hours. By December 1942, the Detroit tank arsenal alone was producing 896 Shermans per month. Across America, 11 factories were in full swing, pushing total monthly Sherman production to approximately 3,500 units. In the same period, Germany managed a mere 34 Tigers. The ratio was already an astonishing 103.1. General Heinz Guderian, Inspector General of Panzer Troops, receiving these figures in January 1943, succinctly noted in his diary, "If these numbers are even half true, we have already lost the war." The production disparity cascaded into every aspect of the war effort, multiplying American advantages. With thousands of Shermans readily available, American tank crews trained on actual tanks. At Fort Knox, Kentucky, the Armored Force School had hundreds of Shermans dedicated solely to training. Crews spent 12 rigorous weeks learning every aspect of their vehicle, firing thousands of rounds, driving hundreds of miles, and performing maintenance until they could replace components blindfolded. Private First Class Clarence Smooyer, a trainee in 1943, later recalled, "We beat the hell out of those training tanks, drove them till they broke, fixed them, drove them again. By the time we shipped out, I knew that tank better than my family's farm tractor." In stark contrast, Germany's precious Tigers were too few to spare for extensive training. At peak production, with barely 100 Tigers a month, training vehicles were virtually non-existent. The entire Panzertruppe at Putlos had just 4 Tigers for training purposes for the entire Wehrmacht. Gerrit Kurt Kleene, assigned to Schwerpanzerabteilung 503, described his training. "We had 3 days in an actual Tiger. 3 days. We spent most of our training studying diagrams and sitting in wooden mock-ups. When we finally received our company Tigers in Russia, half the crew had never started a Maybach engine." This wasn't just about numbers of tanks, but numbers of trained personnel. The complexity of the Tiger compounded the problem. 26,000 parts, 230 specialized tools, requiring 3 months for minimal crew proficiency. The Sherman, with its 15,000 parts and 50 tools, could achieve basic competence in just 4 weeks. Time was a luxury Germany could not afford. D-Day, June 6, 1944, marked the beginning of the ultimate mathematical demonstration. The Allies landed with 4,000 tanks, predominantly Shermans, with 8,000 more waiting in England. Against this, Germany had produced the 105 Tigers in total since 1942, with only around 430 operational across all fronts. In Normandy, the Germans could muster a mere 102 Tigers. SS Oberscharführer Ernst Barkmann of Schwer SS Panzerabteilung 101 witnessed the horrific reality on June 7th. "We destroyed 8 Shermans in the morning. By afternoon, 16 more had taken their place. We destroyed 6 of those. By evening, fresh companies kept arriving. They came like ants. You could step on dozens, hundreds. Thousands more were behind them." The replacement rate told the true story. When America lost a Sherman, A new one arrived from British depots within 48 hours, thanks to a robust system organized by Colonel Joseph Gillam, maintaining a reserve of 2,300 Shermans. Damaged tanks were repaired within hours by mobile workshops or simply abandoned for new vehicles. When Germany lost a Tiger, replacement took weeks or months if it came at all. Each Tiger required special railway cars, a 5-day journey from Germany to Normandy under optimal conditions, often extended to weeks by Allied air attacks. Of 45 Tigers dispatched to Normandy in June 1944, only 17 arrived intact. Consider June 13, 1944, at Villers-Bocage. Michael Whitman's legendary action destroyed 14 tanks, 15 personnel carriers, and 2 anti-tank guns of the British 7th Armored Division in 15 minutes. German propaganda hailed it as proof of Aryan superiority and Tiger invincibility. What they didn't report was the aftermath. Within 72 hours, the British 7th Armored Division had complete replacement of all lost vehicles. Whitman's company, which lost 3 Tigers in the subsequent fighting, would not receive replacements for 6 weeks. Lieutenant Colonel John Cloudsley Thompson of the 7th Armored later wrote, "Whitman was brilliant, no doubt, but brilliance is exhaustible. Industrial production is not. He could destroy our tanks faster than we could brew tea, but we could replace our tanks faster than he could reload." Beyond the raw numbers, the logistics of sustaining these machines highlighted the disparity. Each Sherman required a steady flow of 150 gallons of fuel per 100 miles, 104 rounds of ammunition, oil, spare parts, and food for its 5-man crew. American logistics, epitomized by the Red Ball Express, delivered this without fail. Operating from August to November 1944, 6,000 trucks ran continuously from Normandy beaches to the front lines. On a single day, August 29, 1944, the Red Ball delivered 12,042 tons of supplies, including 800,000 gallons of fuel and 3,000 tons of ammunition, enough for 28 divisions. Each Tiger, meanwhile, consumed 650 gallons of fuel per 60 miles, 92 rounds of ammunition, and required specialized spare parts manufactured only in Germany, demanding premium fuel that became increasingly scarce. German logistics crumbled. A Tiger battalion moving 100 miles required 40,000 gallons of fuel, often more than most German depots contained. The specialized Maybach HL-230 P45 engine required high-octane fuel Germany could barely produce. By late 1944, Tiger units were often immobilized not by enemy fire, but by empty fuel tanks. Hauptmann Wolfgang Schlick of Schwerpanzerabteilung 506 reported in August 1944, "We have 6 operational Tigers, but fuel for perhaps 30 kilometers. The Americans pass our hidden positions in endless columns. We dare not engage. We would destroy a dozen, 2 dozen, and then sit helpless as the 100 behind them crushed us." Maintenance was another critical divergence. Sherman tanks were designed for conscripts with basic training. The entire transmission could be replaced in 4 hours. Track replacement took 90 minutes. Engine swaps required 6 hours. Every part was accessible. Technical Sergeant Robert Early, maintenance chief for the 3rd Armored Division, explained, "The Sherman was like a farm tractor with armor. Any kid who'd worked on his dad's John Deere could figure it out. We had replacement everything. Something broke. Unbolt it. Bolt on a new one. We'd have a knocked-out Sherman running again before the Germans finished diagnosing what was wrong with their Tiger." Tiger maintenance, however, was a nightmare of complexity. The interleaved wheel system, while excellent for weight distribution, required removing up to 9 wheels to replace just one damaged inner wheel, a 12-hour job under ideal conditions. Its sophisticated transmission required specialized tools and trained mechanics for any serious repair. The Maybach engine, powerful but temperamental, needed constant adjustment. Feldwebel Hans Bauer, a Tiger mechanic with Schwer-Panzerabteilung 502, recounted a harrowing experience in Russia. We had a Tiger with transmission damage. The replacement transmission was in Germany. It took 3 weeks to arrive. Installing it required removing the turret. We needed a 15-ton crane. No crane was available. The Tiger sat useless for 2 months while Shermans passed us every day. This wasn't just about engineering. It was about battlefield resilience and the ability to keep fighting. By mid-1944, this mathematics of production had created a cascading crisis Germany couldn't solve. Each Tiger required a crew of 5 highly trained specialists, demanding 19 man-months of instruction per crew. Germany was losing Tiger crews faster than they could be trained. When Tiger WW7 was destroyed, killing Whitman and his crew, Germany lost 60 man-months of irreplaceable training and years of combat experience. The Americans faced no such crisis. Fort Knox was graduating 2,000 fully trained Sherman crews monthly. Wounded crew members were replaced from a pool of 10,000 trained replacements waiting in England. Staff Sergeant Lafayette G. Poole, a legendary Sherman commander, described his experience. "We lost our loader at St. Lo. Within 2 hours we had a replacement who trained on the exact same tank model at Knox. He knew every ammunition rack, every control. We didn't miss a beat." The standardization of the Sherman meant any crew could operate any tank, a stark contrast to the bespoke nature of the Tiger. While Normandy revealed the mathematical impossibility of German victory, the Eastern Front demonstrated it as apocalypse. Operation Bagration, launched on June 22, 1944, saw the Soviets deploy 4,080 tanks against German Army Group Center's 495 tanks, including just 29 operational Tigers. The Soviets had, critically, learned from American production methods. Their T-34, crude compared to the Tiger, could be produced in 3,000 man-hours versus the Tiger's 300,000. Soviet factories were producing 2,000 T-34s monthly. When Germans destroyed 3 Soviet tanks, 5 replacements appeared. When they destroyed 5, 10 appeared. Hauptmann Ernst Lindemann of Schwere-Panzerabteilung 505 recorded the mathematical horror. July 5th, we destroyed 16 T-34s near Minsk. July 6th, 22 more appeared. We destroyed 11. July 7th, 45 T-34s attacked. We destroyed 19 before running out of ammunition. July 8th, 60 T-34s. We had 2 Tigers operational. We retreated. The Soviets had adopted the American mass production philosophy. Quantity has a quality of its own. They even received 4,121 Shermans through Lend-Lease, more than 3 times the total number of Tigers ever built. The Italian campaign offered German tank crews their clearest, most demoralizing view of American industrial might. The confined terrain minimized the Tiger's long-range advantages, but, more importantly, German crews could directly observe American replacement rates. At the Battle of Monte Cassino, Oberleutnant Friedrich Buescher of Schwere-Panzerabteilung 508 kept a detailed log. February 15th, destroyed 4 Shermans near Route 6. February 16th, 8 new Shermans in same position, destroyed 3. February 17th, 12th, Shermans attacking. February 18th, Count 22 Shermans, we have 4 Tigers operational, 12 rounds per tank remaining. The psychological impact was devastating. Gerrit Helmut Wagner wrote to his wife, "We are Sisyphus pushing the boulder. Every Sherman we destroy is replaced by 2. We kill tanks like a farmer harvesting wheat, but the field grows back overnight." American tank recovery units further exacerbated German despair. Captain Thomas Roberts of the 16th Armored Recovery Battalion described their efficiency. "We'd hook a Sherman that caught fire in the morning, have it back to depot by noon, repaired by evening, and back in action the next morning. The Germans would mark it as a kill, then face the same tank 3 days later." The human stories behind these production statistics resonated deeply on American factory floors. At the Detroit Tank Arsenal, workers knew precisely what their labor meant. A banner above the assembly line read, "Every tank we build is a life saved." Mary Krivsky, a Polish immigrant working at the arsenal, embodied this determination. "My brother was in Italy with the 1st Armored. Every Sherman I welded might be the one that brought him home. We worked 16-hour shifts during the Sicily invasion. Nobody complained. The line never stopped." The factory operated 3 shifts, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, with voluntary overtime reaching 95% on Christmas 1943. Absenteeism ran below 2%, a stark contrast to the 15% in German factories by late 1944. German factories faced a different reality. Allied bombing disrupted production constantly. The Henschel factory was hit 39 times, stopping Tiger production for days or weeks. Skilled workers were drafted to replace combat losses. By late 1944, slave labor comprised 40% of the workforce, requiring guards and significantly reducing efficiency. Friedrich Müller, a German factory inspector, reported in November 1944, "Kassel factory produces 8 Tigers this month. 8. Americans produce this many in 4 hours. We use slave labor that sabotages production. They use free workers racing to build more. We cannot win this arithmetic." Another critical factor was fuel. Shermans ran on regular gasoline. Any octane from 70 to 85 worked. The radial aircraft engine was forgiving, reliable, and could burn almost anything flammable in an emergency. America's fuel supply was limitless, with Texas alone producing 100 million barrels of oil in 1944. Standard Oil refined 2 billion gallons of gasoline monthly. Tigers, however, required premium 87-octane fuel for their Maybach engines. Germany's synthetic fuel plants produced inferior fuel that damaged engines. By late 1944, fuel allocation for training was eliminated. New Tiger crews arrived at units without ever having driven their tanks. The fuel consumption differential was staggering. A Tiger consumed 2.75 gallons per mile on roads, 5.5 cross-country. A Sherman, 0.5 gallons per mile, 1.2 cross-country. Moving a Tiger company 100 miles required 15,000 gallons of fuel. A Sherman company, 3,000 gallons. Oberst von Westenhagen, commanding a Schwer SS Panzerabteilung, reported the impossible situation during the Ardennes offensive. "My Tigers have fuel for perhaps 60 kilometers. The objectives are 200-kilometer distant. We are told to capture American fuel. How do we reach American fuel without fuel? This is madness built on desperation." The Battle of the Bulge in December 1944 provided the final, undeniable mathematical proof of German defeat. Hitler assembled his last reserve, 450 tanks including 69 Precious King Tigers, for Operation Watch on the Rhine. Against this, Americans could deploy 8,000 tanks in Europe, with 6,000 more in reserve or training back home. Initial German successes seemed to validate quality over quantity, with King Tigers destroying Shermans at ranges exceeding 2,000 meters. But within days, the mathematics reasserted itself. As Joachim Peiper's Kampfgruppe ran out of fuel near La Glaise, American replacement tanks were already moving from Antwerp depots. The 40 Shermans destroyed on December 17th were replaced by December 19th. The 60 destroyed on December 18th were replaced by December 20th. General George Patton's Third Army, turning north with 350 Shermans on December 22nd, had 400 operational Shermans within 48 hours. Despite losing 88 tanks to German fire, replacement vehicles had exceeded losses. Meanwhile, Peiper had abandoned all his Tigers for lack of fuel, destroying them to prevent capture. Even a seemingly decisive tactical German victory highlighted this strategic imbalance. On March 6, 1945, near Cologne Cathedral, a Pershing tank engaged and destroyed a Panther in one of the war's most filmed tank duels. But just 500 meters away, a more telling scene unfolded, uncaptured by cameras. 11 knocked-out Shermans around the cathedral square, destroyed by a single Panther over 2 days. Yet, within 24 hours, 15 new Shermans had occupied the square. The Panther, damaged and out of ammunition, was abandoned. Feldwebel Gustav Schreiber, the Panther gunner, survived the war and later reflected, "We destroyed 258 enemy tanks with our company, mostly Shermans, a magnificent ratio. But they replaced 258 tanks in perhaps a week. We lost 12 Panthers and received 2 replacements in 6 months. Every tactical victory brought strategic defeat closer. Beyond production numbers, there was a human mathematics equally stark. America trained 250,000 tank crewmen during the war. Germany, perhaps 40,000 for Tigers and Panthers combined. When America lost a crew, 5 trained replacements waited. When Germany lost a Tiger crew, their irreplaceable expertise vanished forever. Sergeant Joe Saunders of the 2nd Armored Division explained the American advantage. "We knew we had 50 more Shermans behind us. If our tank got hit, we'd bail out, walk back, get another tank, and return to fight." The Germans knew each Tiger lost was irreplaceable. That knowledge, that we could afford losses and they couldn't, that won the psychological war. The crew quality differential widened drastically. By March 1945, American crews averaged 6 months of training. German Tiger crews, if they received Tigers at all, averaged 2 weeks. 16-year-old boys were driving 68-ton King Tigers they'd first seen days earlier. Gerrit Wilhelm Hoffmann, a driver in Schwerpanzerabteilung 512, described his training. "I had driven a truck in Hitler Youth. They gave me 4 days in a Panzer IV, then put me in a King Tiger." The commander had been a store clerk 2 months earlier. The gunner had fired 5 practice rounds. We faced Americans who had been training for a year. The fundamental difference lay not in individual capability, but in philosophy. Germany pursued engineering perfection. The Tiger's 80 mm gun could destroy any Allied tank at 2,000 meters. Its armor could deflect most Allied shells. Its sophisticated transmission provided smooth power. Its interleaved wheels distributed weight perfectly. Every aspect was designed for ultimate performance. America pursued production efficiency. The Sherman was adequate. Its 75 mm gun struggled against Tiger armor. Its armor was vulnerable to German guns. Its transmission was simple. Its suspension was basic, but it was good enough. and America could build 36 Shermans for the cost of one Tiger. As William Knudsen stated in 1943, "The best tank is not the one that's technically superior. It's the one that's there when you need it. A Sherman in France is worth 10 perfect tanks on a drawing board." Albert Speer, Germany's armaments minister, understood this truth too late. Writing in his memoirs, "We sought perfection and achieved paralysis. Every improvement delayed production. Every modification required retooling." Shermans achieved 90% operational readiness rates. Of 100 Shermans, 90 would be running on any given day. Mechanical failures were rare and quickly repaired. Tigers, by contrast, achieved a mere 35% operational readiness by late 1944. Of 100 Tigers, if a unit even had that many, only 35 would be operational. Their complex systems failed constantly. The sophisticated transmission lasted 500 kilometers before requiring major maintenance. The interleaved wheels collected mud that froze in Russian winters, immobilizing the tank until chipped free. Major Hans Kruger, a maintenance officer for Schwer Panzerabteilung 503, documented the crisis in January 1945. Of 45 Tigers on strength, 11 operational. 8 await transmissions. 6 need engines. 12 require track repairs. 8 have multiple failures. We cannibalize 3 Tigers to keep one running. Americans abandon damaged Shermans and get new ones. By early 1945, American production had achieved something beyond numbers: strategic freedom. Commanders could plan operations knowing losses would be replaced immediately. They could trade tanks for objectives, using Shermans as expendable assets. General Omar Bradley explained, "We knew we'd lose 4 Shermans for every Tiger killed. We also knew we had 10 Shermans for every Tiger. The mathematics were simple. We could afford the exchange. They couldn't." German commanders, conversely, faced strategic paralysis. Every Tiger lost reduced future capabilities. Operations required agonizing calculations about whether objectives justified irreplaceable losses. By March 1945, standing orders often prohibited Tiger units from engaging unless absolutely necessary. General Major Wolfgang Lang, commanding remnants of a panzer division, captured the German dilemma. "I had 8 Tigers and 900 Shermans in my sector. If I revealed my Tigers' positions, artillery and aircraft would destroy them. If I didn't use them, Shermans would overrun us. We were reduced to watching our destruction through periscopes." When Germany surrendered on May 8, 1945, the production tallies told the complete, devastating story. Germany produced approximately 1,839 Tigers, 347 Tiger IIs, 489 and 492 Tiger IIs. America, with British and Canadian factories adding to the total, produced over 51,000 Shermans. The ratio: 27.7 Shermans for every Tiger. But production was only part of the equation. In May 1945, fewer than 20 Tigers were operational with the Wehrmacht, compared to approximately 35,000 operational Shermans worldwide. Trained German Tiger crews available: fewer than 200. Trained American Sherman crews available: over 40,000. In 1975, a reunion at Fort Knox brought together American and German tank veterans. The conversations revealed how deeply production mathematics had affected both sides. Otto Carius, Germany's second highest scoring tank ace, with over 150 kills, spoke candidly. "We were fighting mathematics, not Americans. I could destroy 10 Shermans and 20 would appear. It was not combat, but arithmetic. We were calculators trying to defeat an avalanche with individual excellence." Staff Sergeant Clyde Brunson, who commanded Sherman's in 3 different armored divisions after having 2 shot from under him, responded, "Otto's right. We knew most of us weren't tank aces. We didn't need to be. We needed to be adequate and numerous. Wars aren't won by heroes, but by production lines." The most poignant moment came when former Oberst Hans von Luck asked the American veterans, "Did you know? Did you know your numbers would overwhelm us regardless of our skill?" Sergeant Ray Hopkins answered, "We knew. Every replacement depot we passed had hundreds of new Shermans. Every letter from home mentioned factories running 3 shifts. We knew you were fighting the entire American industrial machine. We almost felt sorry for you." American mass production created ripple effects beyond simple numbers. With thousands of surplus Shermans, America could afford experimentation. Specialized variants appeared monthly. The Sherman Firefly with its powerful 17-pounder gun, the heavily armored Sherman Jumbo, the rocket launcher Sherman Calliope, the amphibious Sherman DD, and utility variants like the Sherman Crab mine flail or dozer. Germany, barely able to produce standard Tigers, found each experimental modification a fatal diversion of precious resources, producing just 18 Sturm Tigers. The parts supply demonstrated the disparity. American depots stocked 50,000 different Sherman parts. Any component could be delivered to any unit within 72 hours. German Tiger units waited months for specific parts, often cannibalizing operational tanks to keep others running. Technical Sergeant Mike Kozlowski, running a forward depot in Belgium, described American abundance. "We had warehouses full of everything: engines, transmissions, guns, tracks. A unit called for parts. We loaded a truck and sent it. I threw away more spare parts for lack of storage space than German units ever received." American tank crews lived in a different universe from their German counterparts. They knew replacement tanks were plentiful. They knew survival meant more than victory. They knew they could afford to be cautious. Private First Class Clarence Smooyer described the mentality. "Our lieutenant told us straight, 'Your job is to survive and keep pressing forward. If you see a Tiger, call artillery or air support. Don't be heroes. Heroes die. We have more tanks than we have trained crews. Keep yourselves alive and we'll keep you in tanks.'" German Tiger crews faced the opposite pressures. Each Tiger was irreplaceable. Each crew was precious. Yet, they were expected to fight against impossible odds, achieving kill ratios that mathematics made meaningless. Feldwebel Karl Braumann, a gunner in Schwer Panzerabteilung 502, described the psychological burden. "We knew we had to kill 10, 20, 30 enemy tanks to justify our Tiger's existence. The pressure was unbearable. We were not soldiers, but accountants, calculating whether we had killed enough to justify our resources. Beyond production numbers lay the fundamental infrastructure that determined outcomes. American factories were immune to enemy attack. Detroit, Chicago, Pittsburgh, all produced at maximum capacity without fear of bombing. Workers arrived rested, fed, and motivated. Materials flowed without interruption. Quality control caught defects before tanks left the factories. German factories operated under constant threat. The Henschel works in Kassel was bombed 39 times, the MAN factory in Nuremberg 27 times. Workers spent nights in shelters, days clearing rubble. Materials arrived sporadically as Allied bombings severed rail lines. Quality suffered as exhausted workers and slave laborers made mistakes. Hans Müller, production manager at Henschel, documented the cascade of problems. October 1944. Last night's raid destroyed the heat treatment facility. Tiger armor plates must go to Essen if trains run. Essen was bombed Tuesday. Alternative is Dortmund, bombed Thursday. We have 200 Tiger hulls awaiting armor. Perhaps 20 will be completed this month. American production faced no such obstacles. The Fisher Tank Arsenal in Grand Blanc, Michigan, employed 4,500 workers in perfect safety. They worked regular shifts, lived in comfortable housing, and ate in cafeterias serving fresh food. Mass production also created learning curve advantages Germany couldn't match. Every 1,000 Shermans produced reduced unit cost by 8%. Production improvements were implemented across all factories simultaneously. By 1944, Detroit Arsenal was building Shermans 60% faster than in 1942, using fewer workers. Lieutenant Colonel Robert Young, analyzing production efficiency, reported worker suggestions continuously improved output. A woman at Pressed Steel noticed a welding sequence change could save 4 minutes per tank. Implemented across all factories, this saved 3,900 production hours monthly, enough to build 40 additional Shermans. German production, conversely, showed reverse learning curves. As experienced workers were drafted, quality declined. As materials became scarce, substitutions complicated production. As Allied bombing intensified, production dispersed to smaller, less efficient facilities. Tiger production time increased, from 300,000 man-hours in 1942 to 450,000 man-hours by late 1944. Each Tiger cost more and took longer to build as the war progressed, the opposite of the American experience. The Tiger's technological superiority came with hidden costs. Its sophisticated Maybach engine required 120 different parts unique to Tigers. The complex transmission needed specialized tools. The gun's precision required careful maintenance. Every advantage increased complexity. The Sherman's simplicity was its strength. The Ford GAAA engine shared parts with truck engines. The transmission was a modified truck design. The gun was an adapted anti-aircraft weapon. Everything was proven, reliable, and repairable with common tools. Master Sergeant Tom Williams, maintaining Shermans for the 4th Armored Division, explained, "We fixed Shermans with parts from trucks, jeeps, anything. Needed a fuel pump? Truck pump worked. Needed electrical parts? Jeep alternator fit. The Tiger needed exact parts made in specific factories. We needed whatever worked." American production superiority created psychological weapons beyond numbers. Captured German tank crews were deliberately shown American tank parks containing hundreds of new Shermans. They toured repair depots rebuilding damaged tanks in hours. They witnessed the casual waste of material that revealed unlimited resources. Hauptmann Friedrich Schulz, captured after his Tiger was destroyed near Aachen, described his tour of a replacement depot. "They showed us 500 new Shermans waiting for crews. The American officers said they received 500 monthly just for this sector. I knew then every Tiger we'd destroyed was meaningless. We were bailing the ocean with teaspoons." These prisoners, returning to Germany through exchanges or escapes, spread devastating truths about American production. Their reports, more credible than propaganda, destroyed morale among German tank crews. By winter 1944-45, the maintenance differential had become absolute. American units maintained 90% operational rates despite combat and weather. German Tiger units struggled to maintain 20% operational rates even without combat. The 56th Heavy Tank Battalion's War Diary for January 1945 tells a grim story. Strength 45 King Tigers. Operational 8, awaiting repair 37. Of these, 12 need engines, none available, 15 need transmissions, 2 available, 10 need multiple components, none available. Cannibalization authorized to maintain minimum operational strength. Meanwhile, the 37th Tank Battalion, 4th Armored Division, reported strength 53 Shermans, operational 51. Awaiting repair, 2 will be completed by nightfall. Replacement tanks available in depot, 15. Crew replacements available, 3 complete crews plus individual specialists. April 1945 provided the ultimate demonstration. As American forces crossed the Rhine, they left behind hundreds of damaged Shermans not worth repairing, given the abundance of replacements. German forces, desperately short of tanks, attempted to recover and repair abandoned Shermans for their own use. The irony was complete. The Wehrmacht, convinced of its technological superiority, was reduced to scavenging enemy tanks it had once derided. Tigers, too complex to maintain without German infrastructure, were abandoned for lack of fuel or minor repairs. Shermans, simple and robust, were pressed into German service. Oberst Wilhelm Müller, commanding an improvised battle group defending Nuremberg, reported the final humiliation. My command consists of 3 Tigers, 1 operational, 8 Shermans captured and repaired, 12 assault guns, and various wheeled vehicles. The American tanks are easier to maintain than our own. We are fighting American tanks with American tanks. The war ended not with dramatic tank battles, but with American columns driving past abandoned German armor. Tigers sat beside roads, out of fuel, out of ammunition, out of spare parts. Their crews, among the best trained tank soldiers in history, walked home in defeat. Sherman columns rolled through Germany, each lost tank immediately replaced from the endless stream flowing from Atlantic ports. Their crews, adequately trained and utterly confident in their supply chain, barely paused to acknowledge the abandoned German giants. General Dwight D. Eisenhower, touring defeated Germany, observed, "We did not defeat German tanks. We defeated German production." Every Tiger was a tactical victory that cost them strategic capability. Every Sherman we lost was replaced before they finished counting their kills. The final accounting revealed the true mathematics of victory. Production speed. Tiger, 300,000 to 450,000 man-hours per tank. Sherman, 17,000 to 48,000 man-hours per tank. 1. Tiger's production time equaled 6 to 26 Shermans. Cost analysis. Tiger, 250,000 to 300,000 Reichsmarks. Sherman, 44,556 to 64,450 USD. Fuel consumption. Tiger, 2.75 gallons per mile, road. Sherman, 0.5 gallons per mile, road. 1. Tiger's fuel consumption equaled 5.5 Shermans. Maintenance requirements. Tiger, 10 hours maintenance per 1 hour operation. Sherman, 1 hour maintenance per 10 hours operation. 1. Tiger's maintenance equaled 100 Shermans. Training time. Tiger crew, 19 man-months minimum. Sherman crew, 5 man-months standard. 1 Tiger crew training time equaled 4 Sherman crews. Post-war analysis by both American and German officers reached the same conclusions. The Tiger was possibly the best tank of World War II in terms of individual capability. The Sherman was adequate at best in tank versus tank combat. But wars are not won by individual excellence. They are won by systemic superiority. Colonel Robert Cameron, writing the official U.S. Army history, concluded, "The Sherman succeeded not despite its mediocrity, but because of it. Its simplicity enabled mass production. Its reliability enabled continuous operations. Its standardization enabled instant replacement. The Tiger failed not despite its excellence, but because of it. Its complexity prevented mass production. Its temperamental nature reduced operational readiness. Its uniqueness prevented replacement. General Major Friedrich von Mellenthin wrote more succinctly, "We built 1 through 947 Tigers. They built 49,134 Shermans. Everything else is commentary." Behind the production numbers lay human costs that revealed the true price of the German quality over quantity philosophy. Tiger crews, knowing their tanks were irreplaceable, fought to the death rather than abandon them. Of approximately 8,000 German Tiger crewmen, fewer than 2,000 survived the war, a 75% casualty rate. Sherman crews, knowing replacement tanks were plentiful, readily abandoned damaged vehicles. Of approximately 250,000 American tank crewmen trained, 6,500 died in combat, a 2.6% casualty rate. The production philosophy that seemed to value machines over men actually saved lives through abundance. Sergeant John Irwin, who had 3 Shermans shot from under him, explained the American advantage. "We were taught that tanks were expendable. Crews were not. Bail out fast, walk back, get another tank." The Germans fought like their Tigers were made of gold, because to them they were. They died trying to save machines. We lived by abandoning them. The production battle between Tigers and Shermans established principles that shaped post-war military thinking. The United States had proven that industrial capacity was the ultimate weapon. The ability to produce, supply, and replace equipment faster than enemies could destroy it negated tactical disadvantages. The Soviet Union, observing American success, adopted similar mass production strategies for the Cold War. The T-54-55 became the most produced tank in history, with over 100,000 built double Sherman production. Simplicity, reliability, and numbers became the hallmarks of Soviet armor doctrine. Germany, learning from defeat, abandoned complex perfection for practical sufficiency. Their post-war Leopard tanks emphasized reliability and ease of maintenance over maximum capability. German industry, rebuilt on American production principles learned during the occupation, became Europe's manufacturing powerhouse. At the 1985 Fort Knox reunion, veterans from both sides rendered their final verdict. Otto Carius, the German tank ace, provided perhaps the most honest assessment. The Tiger was a masterpiece. In a tournament of single combat, it would defeat any tank of the war. But wars are not tournaments. The Sherman was a tool of industry, and industry won the war. We killed Shermans like cutting grass, but the grass grew faster than we could cut. That is not a failure of the Tiger or success of the Sherman. It is the reality of industrial warfare. Sergeant Wardell Henderson, who commanded 5 different Shermans through France and Germany, added the American perspective. "I never wanted to face a Tiger. 1-on-1, we'd lose every time. But we never fought 1-on-1. We fought 5-on-1, 10-on-1, with artillery support and air cover and replacement tanks waiting. The Tiger was the better tank. The Sherman was the winner's tank. I'd rather be a winner in a Sherman than a dead hero in a Tiger." Today, restored Tigers command millions at auction. Only 7 running Tigers exist worldwide. Restored Shermans sell for tens of thousands. Hundreds still run on every continent. Even in preservation, the production differential persists. At the Patton Museum at Fort Knox, A Tiger I sits beside an M4A3 Sherman. The placard reads, Tiger I, one of 1,347 produced. This tank destroyed an estimated 40 Allied vehicles. Sherman M4A3, one of 49,234 produced. Tanks of this type liberated Europe. The mathematics of victory could not be more clearly stated. In 1989, Friedrich Schulz, a former Tiger commander, returned to Normandy for the 45th anniversary of D-Day. Standing in the American cemetery above Omaha Beach, he spoke to assembled veterans. We came with the world's best tanks, convinced of our superiority. You came with good enough tanks and overwhelming numbers. We fought with excellence. You fought with arithmetic. In war, arithmetic always wins. We built 1,347 Tigers. You built 49,234 Shermans. Those numbers are not statistics. They are the difference between dictatorship and democracy, between scarcity and abundance, between defeat and victory. The crowd, American, British, Canadian, and German veterans, stood in silence. The mathematics of war had been reduced to its essential truth, the ultimate lesson. The German Tiger was a masterpiece of engineering, a testament to technical excellence, a symbol of quality over quantity. Yet, it was also a strategic disaster, a resource sink, and, ultimately, a monument to the fallacy that tactical superiority can overcome industrial inferiority. The American Sherman was a compromise, a good-enough solution, a triumph of procurement over perfection. It was also a war winner, a strategic masterpiece, and, ultimately, a monument to the power of industrial democracy. Germany lost the war in the factories of Detroit long before they lost it on the battlefields of Europe. They were defeated not by better tanks, but by more tanks. Not by superior quality, but by overwhelming quantity. Not by tactical excellence, but by strategic arithmetic. The 49th 234 to 347 ratio remains the only number that truly mattered. In industrial warfare, the assembly line defeats the craftsman's bench every single time.